This is my FRP presentation slides based on my FRP final paper. I will be talking about the structural inequality and the Latino experience in the United States. I am part of the Sociology 3 American Cultures Principle of Sociology with Dr. Villarreal, and it is the 12th of December 2025. Abstract. This project examines systemic inequality effects Latino communities in the United States face. Using sociology and the sociological imagination, personal struggles are analyzed as structural problems rather than individual failures. This research connects institutions, race, and class to lived experience of exclusion and discrimination. Research topic and significance or purpose. For my topic, I chose the structural inequality and the lived experiences of Latino communities. Now you may ask, why does this matter? This research is significant because it shows how social structure and social stratification shape access to housing, education, and healthcare. It challenges dominant values and norms that treat inequality as natural or deserved. My thesis. Latino inequality in the United States is not caused by cultural or individual failure, but by systemic institutional racism, power imbalances, and unequal social facts embedded in political and economic institutions. For my research questions, this is what I used to go into the paper and decide what I was going to write about. First, how do social structures produce inequality for Latino communities? Secondly, how does race and ethnicity shape institutional treatment? And third, how do agents of socialization reproduce inequality across generations? Methods used. In this project, I witnessed and read scientific methods and deductive logical approaches being used. Text and research heavily relied on qualitative data from peer-reviewed research. Ethical standards were guided by the value neutrality and the code of ethics. Here's my first section of my analysis. Institutions and stratification. Latino communities in the United States experience systemic inequality through multiple levels of macro-level analysis, meso-level analysis, and micro-level analysis. At the national level, policies around labor, immigration, and healthcare shape access to opportunity, creating structural barriers to success. At the community and institutional level, schools, hospitals, and workplaces reproduce disadvantages by limiting resources and support to Latinos. On a personal level, Latinos navigate daily obstacles that reflect these broader systems' implications, including restricted job mobility and housing discrimination. These patterns illustrate how social mobility, wealth, and prestige are unevenly distributed, exemplifying that hardship is often a product and not an individual failure of the social structure. And this is elaborated upon more in the sociological imagination text. Analysis. Race and power. Race and power are central to understanding Latino inequity. Latinos are often positioned as a minority group and subordinate group relative to the dominant group, meaning the highest class in the U.S., facing persistent institutional racism, discrimination, and prejudice. Latino systemic dynamics are reinforced through law, education, and housing policies, putting Latinos in a disadvantaged and limited position. By stressing how white privilege operates in everyday life, this analysis shows that inequality is not random. Rather, it is structured through long-standing racial hierarchies. Analysis. This is the final portion of my analysis. socialization, and identity. Socialization plays a key role in maintaining Latino inequality. Through socialization, schools, media, and other institutional agents communicate norms and expectations that limit opportunities. From an early age, Latinos experience anticipatory socialization that teaches restricted expectations, while resocialization occurs in institutions such as detention centers and immigration systems. Navigating multiple identities, individuals must contend with both their cultural heritage and social pressures, illustrating how racialization and institutional structures shape identities and opportunities. This is especially critical and fundamental to understand in the political turmoil we live in today due to the targeting of Latinos based on physical experience, language, and legal background. Here's for why I chose this topic. I chose this topic because I am Latina and I have seen firsthand how structural inequality shapes labor opportunities for my community. Many of the struggles discussed in my research, such as labor exploitation, discrimination in schools, and barriers in healthcare, are not abstract ideas. They are lived realities that affect personal people in my life. Especially due to ICE raids, I have seen personal family members in Central California being targeted and have not been able to attend school or their work. By researching this topic, I was able to connect my personal experiences to larger sociological imagination concepts that analyze how social structures influence outcomes for marginalized groups. This perspective helped me understand that the challenges faced by Latino communities are not the result of my personal failure or our personal failures, but rather systemic barriers built into institutions. A look into history. Latino inequality in the United States has deep historical roots. Policies such as the Bracero program in the mid-20th century, which recruited Mexican laborers for low-wage work, and redlining practices in housing, created long-lasting economic and social disadvantages. These historical patterns exemplify social stratification and social mobility barriers that continue today. Understanding history is crucial to witnessing modern inequalities and understanding that they are not new, they have been lived before. Today's political climate. The concepts explored in this project are highly relevant to current events, as I mentioned previously. Under the current administration, debates over immigration reform, labor rights, and healthcare access highlight ongoing institutional racism and subordinate group marginalization. By applying concepts like macro-level analysis, meso-level analysis, and socialization, we can see how policies continue to impact Latino communities in a negative way. Understanding these sociological frameworks help us critically evaluate political decisions, advocate for equity, and recognize the structural roots of social inequality in the news and everyday life. At the end of my presentation, I included the following photos to show a quick recap of the past 3 slides. First, I have the Bracero program, which illustrates the Mexican laborers in the U.S. working for low wages. The second image I have are some charts and data regarding how Latino immigration has increased exponentially over the past decade. And finally, the most relevant 2 photos I have at the bottom illustrate Latinos advocating and showing resistance towards institutional racism that is infiltrating the current legal and legislative system today. There's protests and advocates out there representing Latino voices. Conclusion. This research exemplifies that inequality is structural and not individual. True equity requires dismantling institutional barriers and challenging unequal power systems. Latino communities engage in resistance by demanding socio-political equality and access to resources. Here are my references. I included 3 course readings that we have read throughout the course of the semester: The Sociological Imagination, The Souls of Black Folk, and Quesada, Hart, and Bourgeois, 2011. I also included 3 external academic sources, them 3 being American Apartheid, American Journal of Sociology, and The Immigrant America. Thank you for listening to my presentation.